If you use X, the social network formerly known as Twitter, you're likely to have noticed something of a change in your timeline since the start of September, with the absence of one of the network's biggest and most prolific audiences, the Brazilians. Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes and X's billionaire CEO Elon Musk have been engaged in one of the world's most high-profile staring contests over the past few months, which escalated into a blanket ban on X across Brazil starting on August the 31st. Justice Moraes, who's a lightning rod for vitriol from Brazil's right wing, he had demanded Musk's social media platform take down posts and accounts that diffused conspiracy theories concerning the Brazilian voting system. As a darling of that very same Brazilian right wing, Musk refused, threatening to shut down Brazil's X operations, which he ended up doing. At the time, we at Brazilian Report warned that firing his entire Brazil team could make the problem a lot worse for X, because without a legal representative in the country, the platform could end up facing a ban, which has indeed been the case. And now, more than 3 weeks into the X ban, with Brazilian internet users now starting to get used to life after Twitter, that staring contest may well be coming to an end, with Elon Musk blinking first and caving to the Supreme Court's demands. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. I'm Ewan Marshall, Deputy Editor of the Brazilian Report, and this is Explaining Brazil. If you like Explaining Brazil, you should subscribe to our website, The Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind this podcast. Or you can go the extra mile and make a donation to our newsroom, tipping our journalists via our Buy Me a Coffee page. And you can also subscribe to our Buy Me a Coffee fan page, pledging a monthly contribution to our newsroom in exchange for exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. Our Buy Me a Coffee subscribers are Luis Renz, Cristina Viu, Andrei Novoseltsev, Wild Rice, Jaciara de Oliveira, Carson Allen, Gabriel Luca, Pan Ludwig, Leslie Seal, Mark Hillary, Erwan Menais, Aaron Berger, Kars Vrieswick, Alistair Townsend, Miller Renarcido, Peter Abramson, David Dixon, Jose Ozi Stankovic, Emerging Market Muser, Anna Lund, Peter Suffren, Anderson da Silva, and someone who chose to remain anonymous. And our Buy Me a Coffee members come from all over the world, so please, if we're butchering the pronunciation of your name, please send us an email. If you too believe in the importance of independent journalism, and if you want to hear your name on our podcast, go to buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report and subscribe to one of our membership levels. Click on buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report to find out more. So, to pick apart the latest from this ex-Supreme Court feud, I'm delighted to be joined by the Brazilian Report's Brasilia correspondent, Sede Silva. Hi, Sede.
Hi, Ewan. Thank you for having me.
And so, Sede, just bring us up to date then. I mean, is this whole dispute, is it over now? I mean, should we be expecting more twists and turns coming from the future? And, why is the X ban still in place? Why can't I get back on my X account?
Well, we still have to wait and see. So back on Saturday, September 21, Justice Moraes issued a new court order for X that I still call Twitter, and even Mr. Musk still calls it Twitter, demanding extra documentation that the lawyers that were nominated by Twitter to represent Twitter in Brazil are actually officially in that capacity. So they still need the original documents to arrive from the United States. There's some other regulations, some other things on that order, but that is mainly the big thing. In the end, Twitter was banned in Brazil for failing to have a legal representative after Mr. Musk shut down Twitter's office in Brazil. After he shut down the offices, Twitter's lawyers in Brazil still issued a petition in a separate case concerning a wild card candidate for São Paulo Mayor Pablo Marçal, but they were refusing, or Twitter or its lawyers were refusing to reply to other court orders and other communications with the Supreme Court, and that is the reason why Twitter was banned. Twitter is still under the deadline of 5 days to forward this new documentation so its lawyers can attest to the satisfaction of Justice Moraes that they indeed represent Twitter in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, it seems Moraes is just being quite careful in the kind of the adherence to this order because, I mean, quite recently, even during the ban, there was a point where Twitter or X came back online for quite a lot of Brazilian internet users, very briefly. And I mean, what could you kind of explain to us what happened there? Why was that brief return to service?
Yeah, so there are different versions of how precisely that happened, but we know at least technically how that happened. So there's a network provider named Cloudflare. It's a big company and provides services to other big companies on the internet. And Twitter, after it was banned in Brazil, it changed its provider to Cloudflare in order to host its services on the internet. And an update changed the structure to use IP addresses associated with the Cloudflare. So IP addresses or Internet Protocol addresses are like the home addresses for people in real life. So your home has an address, the company you work on has an address, and the same thing happens with the internet, where websites and services they have an IP address. When the ban was put into place, telecoms operators and ISPs in Brazil they switched or they blocked the IP addresses associated with Twitter. When Twitter changed its IP addresses, Brazilians were now able to use Twitter under the new address that Cloudflare was providing. When that was detected, Anatel, which is the federal telecoms watchdog, worked with the Supreme Court and worked with the telecoms companies in order to enforce the ban also on the new IP addresses. And at the time, Anatel said that Cloudflare had complied, that Cloudflare had actively helped in enforcing the ban on the new IP addresses. But Cloudflare's CEO he has recently given an interview to Bloomberg, which was published this Monday. And what he says is that he did not cooperate with Cloudflare, did not cooperate with Anatel. I still understand that there is something in the language here because what the CEO is saying, Matthew Prince, what the CEO is saying is there's nothing we did to further facilitate the ability for Brazil to block what they were already doing, end quote, to Bloomberg. But I think what Matthew Prince is being very careful here, because what Anatel said originally in its statement was that Cloudflare helped to identify what was going on, but not necessarily helped in enforcing the block. So I think there's some room in the language for both parties here to be right.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I mean, now if it seems as if Elon Musk and Twitter or X are going to be caving to the Brazilian Supreme Court's demands, I mean, it's an interesting one because I mean we all know who Elon Musk is. We've all we've heard lots about him. We've heard him speak for years and years now. He's definitely very big about kind of controlling his own narrative and keeping up appearances. So, how does he plan to spin something like this after constantly saying that he was never going to back down to the Brazilian Supreme Court and now maybe ceding to their demands?
Yeah, so Mr. Musk is the world's largest troll, or the second largest after Donald Trump. And as any troll, he does not admit defeat. So I don't think he will spin this. He will merely distract with something else, and he will not address what happened or why Twitter returned to Brazil. The company will probably comply with the new orders, probably will return to being active in Brazil. But Mr. Musk will simply not address this and goes to talk about some other conspiracy theory or something else.
Interesting. Yeah. And I mean, are you surprised at the way that Brazil and Brazilians as a whole reacted to the Twitter ban? Because I mean, it was something that, in a lot of other countries in the news, they picked up the idea that Brazil had banned Twitter, and there was a sense that, there was a mass of the population that were incensed and would go to the streets to demand the return of Twitter, but that wasn't really the case. I mean, are you surprised at how this was received in Brazil?
I am not surprised, although I am disappointed that more outlets, especially key outlets in Brazil, are not treating this as censorship because this is what the decision is. There is no tool in the constitution or any instrument to block a whole social media to users because it is not doing something as the court requires. It is still a service, and the decision by Justice Alexandre de Moraes is still inflicting harm on third parties that are not plaintiffs to this court. So it is illegal and it is censorship. And were it done, for example, by a judge appointed by former President Jair Bolsonaro, things would be very different. But we are in a very polarized environment, as we keep coming back to this topic here in the Brazilian report. And the problem with polarization is that people that are identified with one team, they can do anything they want and they will not be criticized by that team and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, definitely quite an interesting example when it comes to Alexandre de Moraes, someone who, when he was appointed, would never have been a darling of the Brazilian left, and certainly was a lot closer to Brazil's conservatives, but that has definitely shifted in the last few years. And just I wanted to maybe, if you could help us give us some context and the wider context of Twitter in Brazil, potentially how important is Brazil to X and vice versa? Because I mean, there was definitely a point during the heyday of Twitter that it seemed that in Brazil it was something that you had to have access to this tool, which that may be skewed obviously by the fact that due to our work we're a lot more kind of online than the rest of the Brazilian population, but it felt like something that was really part of the culture. But do you think that's the case? Are we overblowing it a bit? Is it even one of the most important social medias in Brazil?
Yeah, so this is once more a situation where the numbers don't tell the whole story. So if you go to statista.com, they will tell you that Brazil is number 6 in Twitter's largest markets with 21 million users. Compare, for example, to over 100 million users in the United States and almost 70 million in Japan, which is Twitter's second largest market. But Brazilians, as anyone knows, and any foreign person that has ever interacted with Brazilians on social media knows, Brazilians are tremendously active on social media. Brazilians spend more hours per day than most populations on social media, and they also are very influential. So you see a lot of foreign news websites talking about how much the absence of Brazilians on Twitter impacted their communities. So, for instance, if you go to Vulture, which is a cultural blog under New York Magazine, there's an article named Brazilian Stans, You Will Be Missed. So stans is how the young cool kids call fans nowadays. And this author, Jennifer Zan, is talking on Vulture about how Brazilian fan accounts are very important and very influential on Twitter. Associated Press also ran a story called There's No X in Brazil, Celebrity Fandom Worldwide is in Disarray. And a story by NBC. NBC has a story, How Brazil's Suspension of X is Hurting Stan Twitter. So there are many Brazilian Stan accounts or fan accounts of K-pop, K-drama, TV series, HBO and Netflix series, pop star, singers, musicians, and so on, which are very active, and they really feed the debate or the conversation. And they're now absent, and many fans worldwide of many things, many of them which are not Brazilian, they are missing the Brazilian fan accounts.
And I mean, I think we both know from experience that Brazilians are among the main drivers of the meme production industry
Precisely.
globally.
Yeah,
And so Twitter has really suffered from that.
it has suffered, and there's also the political thing because Twitter has always been very influential where the news hits first. So even though Twitter was never the most popular network, it was never the most as used as Facebook or as WhatsApp or over Instagram or over social media, but it is the most prestigious one because it is where the politicians and the soccer players and the soccer coaches will tell the news that they are hiring someone or there's some big news development, or a new minister is being fired, new minister is being hired, or some new initiatives, many politicians and key leaders, they will take to Twitter to tell the news first. And this is also being present now because Brazil is currently on the eve of elections for mayor, which are taking place now on early October, the runoff. And because Twitter is not active in Brazil for most users who are not daring to use a VPN or whatever, the people that will debate and issue the talking points in the elections, the spin doctors, and the people that will go to Twitter to debate the elections, they're not doing that on Twitter. So Twitter is missing a big opportunity of the mayoral elections in Brazil, which are huge. And Brazil holds elections for mayor in all of its over 5,000 cities at once on the same day. So it's a big, big event. And it's not being discussed on Twitter because Twitter is currently blocked. So it's also a business opportunity that Twitter, Mr. Musk, etc., are missing.
Yeah, no, fascinating. And just to finish off then, because it has been over 3 weeks now that Brazil has been suffering from Twitter abstinence, and potentially it seems like the big winner is Blue Sky, the microblogging platform that was set up, well, helped to be set up by one of the founders of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. And it's, you know, if anyone has never been on Blue Sky before, it reminds you of like old Twitter. It looks very like that kind of pared back classic style of Twitter. And Brazilians have flocked to Blue Sky in their droves with all these post-ban signups. Portuguese is already the most spoken language on the entire social media, which is fascinating over such a short space of time. So what do you think? I mean, are you on Blue Sky? What do you think about the chances of Blue Sky potentially being here to stay if Twitter does come back in the near future?
Yes, I am on Blue Sky. I came to Blue Sky after the Twitter ban. Blue Sky last week announced it now has over 10 million users, and it also recently announced it gained 3 million new users. So out of this 10 million, 3 million are very new, very recent. And many of these 3 million new users are Brazilian. So Blue Sky is definitely celebrating that. But I understand that this will be a short-lived, at least that is my bet, a short-lived success, because many people are on Twitter first because they want to hear the news first. They want to get the news first. And that happens on Twitter. And also because these people want to reach a large audience and including a global audience. And that is still Twitter as opposed to Blue Sky. So I understand that much like other social media and services that people migrated to when the main one doesn't work. We had this in Brazil a few times whenever WhatsApp doesn't work or WhatsApp is even blocked temporarily by a court order, many Brazilians will flock to Telegram, which is still huge, but Telegram is still second choice to WhatsApp. And I think the same thing will happen once Twitter returns, and Blue Sky will be the second choice when Twitter is not working.
Yeah, that's it. You wonder if Blue Sky is going to just kind of have that consolidated backup role whenever the Twitter servers go down. Yeah, it's an interesting point today. And yeah, I think that's great for today. Thanks a lot today. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Elon. See you next time.
And if you like Explaining Brazil, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. It takes only a second and it will help us reach a much broader audience. Or better yet, you can sign up for the Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind this podcast. We have a subscription-based business model, and your memberships fuel our journalism and keep us going and growing. And thanks to our subscribers, we've also been able to cover Brazil and Latin America extensively, and for our work, we've won and been shortlisted for multiple international journalism awards. The World Association of News Publishers, WANIFRA, they considered us the best news website in the Americas for a small local newsroom. And in order to keep doing that work, we do need your support. So go to Brazilian.report/subscribe. I'm Ewan Marshall, and thank you very much for listening. And Explaining Brazil will be back next week.